Andasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamahyam Tadati Swapadamritam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamuscha Shirupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ratanakanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurkushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Vishramami Haripriye Mancha Kalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. We are reading chapter 3 of the book. Chapter is entitled Only He Could Lead Them. We are discussing about the first Rath Yatra festival that held in the history of iskcon, and that was in San Francisco. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada named that city as New Jagannath Puri. So let's read the after words of the Rath Yatra, the response after the Rath Yatra. It was great. It was wonderful. It was a beautiful day, they said. And Swamiji listened, moved by his disciples' descriptions of the celebration. Many hippies had joined the large procession. Mukunda, Haridasa, Hayagriva, and some of the women had been on the cart, and the instruments, including Yamuna's playing on their harmonium, had all been amplified. Everyone in the streets had liked it. The police motor escorts had tried to hurry the devotees, but so many people had crowded in front that the parade had been obliged to go slowly, just as Swamiji had asked. Subala had danced wildly the whole time, and Jayananda had been jumping up and down, playing karatals. From the truck, some of the women had handed out cut oranges, apples, and bananas, and others had thrown flowers. The crowds had loved it. Subala related how, after the festival, they had traveled out on the freeway in their flower bedecked canopy covered truck, carrying 30 devotees and the deities of Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balram. They had driven up through the mountains in what must have been one of the most unusual vehicles ever seen. After all the visitors had departed, the deities remained in the house with Swamiji and his servants. Swamiji felt satisfied that his disciples had successfully held a Rath Yatra festival. Although untrained, they were sincere. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and Bhaktivinoda Thakur would have been pleased to see the first American Rath Yatra. The whole world was in anxiety. Swamiji explained to the devotees gathered in his room that evening. Only in the spiritual world was there freedom from anxiety. Becoming free from all anxiety and returning to the spiritual world was the purpose of Krishna consciousness. And festivals like Rath Yatra made people Krishna conscious. Swamiji had many, many ideas for festivals. If he had the money and the manpower, he said he could have a festival every day. Krishna consciousness was unlimited. This Rath Yatra festival was another sign of the good reception for Krishna consciousness in the West. Swamiji still talked of going to India. He had virtually made up his mind to go. The question now was when, and whether by the western route via Japan or the eastern route via New York. The grey skies and unseasonably cool temperatures of Stinson Beach were a disappointment. His health was still poor. He even spoke of dying. It didn't matter whether he died in America or Vrindavan, he said. If a Vaishnava dies in Vrindavan, the land where Krishna appeared, he is assured of joining Krishna in the spiritual world. Yet when Lord Chaitanya had traveled outside Vrindavan, his devotee Advaita had assured him, wherever you are is Vrindavan. To be always absorbed in thinking of Krishna was also Vrindavan. So if he were to pass away while preaching Krishna consciousness anywhere in the world, certainly he would still attain to the eternal Vrindavan in the spiritual sky. Nevertheless, Swamiji wanted to go to Vrindavan. It was the best place to die or to recuperate. Besides, he had a plan for bringing his disciples to Vrindavan for training. Swamiji told Kirtanananda, Hayagriva, and others that he would take them with him and show them the sacred places of Krishna's pastimes. With the New York Temple's building fund, he would start his American house in Vrindavan. Most of the devotees had to remain in San Francisco, hoping for a chance to visit Swamiji. From the few who knew firsthand, they heard about Swamiji's plans to leave for India, perhaps never to return. It was painful to hear. He's going almost to death, but then returning by Krishna's grace and rejoining them in San Francisco, yet being unable to stay with them as before. Now his plans of going to India, maybe forever these activities, intensified their concern and love for him. Devotees worried, speculating on whether they could carry on without Swamiji. One devotee suggested that perhaps one of Swamiji's godbrothers should come to America and fill in for Swamiji. And if the worst happened, uh, take over the leadership of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. When the suggestion reached Swamiji, he considered it without immediately replying. So, what do you think would be the response of Srila Prabhupada when one devotee suggested that he should send someone, maybe his godbrother from India, who could take over the leadership for the International Society of Krishna Consciousness?
I think Prabhuji, because he was not sure about the God brothers, he was not getting help from them. When he sought their help for creating Krishna consciousness in West, nobody was responsive. So probably he will not be very much inclined positively that one of his God brothers can come.
Okay. And what else?
And suppose this God brother teaches something else which he has not taught to them. So there will be contradiction. People will get confused. That may be one of the reasons.
That's fine. But what about his response to this disciple or devotee, suggesting that he should send someone who would replace him and take over the leadership of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness?
Guruji, he would not call any of his god brother. He will take his own responsibility himself. His guru has asked him to go to the West for Krishna consciousness.
Yeah,
Prabhupada would never, never, never.
that's what Prabhupada would do. That's true.
Ah,
But then what would be his feelings towards this suggestion?
he closed his eyes and keep mum.
No, Prabhuji, I have read the para frankly. He feels that it is an insult to him to think that his God brothers will come.
Yeah. So that was an insult to him. He felt that. Why it was an insult? It was an insult because here the devotee who suggested that Prabhupada send a god brother to take over the leadership of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness thought that, this process of Krishna consciousness is like any other mundane process of education or teaching, where one teacher replaces another teacher, and that's all. It doesn't matter whether, you study mathematics from one teacher, you study mathematics from another mathematics teacher. Uh, that person forgot that perhaps that person existed in Krishna consciousness because of the sacrifice of Srila Prabhupada. And how could he expect that, even if Prabhupada would say that, I'll send someone who will replace me, a devotee or disciple should feel inside that, how can someone replace you? You brought me to Krishna consciousness. Right? And someone upfront suggesting that, you send someone who can take over the leadership of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So that shows very immature, ungrateful attitude. So that's why Prabhupada felt that was an insult, and Prabhupada was not happy about that suggestion. He was not happy. Mukunda. Yes, Ashoka Neja Prabhuji, please read.
Most of the devotees, is this the para I should start, Mukunda?
Mukunda, I was sitting alone with Swamiji.
Okay. Mukunda, I was sitting alone with Swamiji in his room, and he was very grave and silent. His eyes were closed. Then suddenly tears began flowing from his eyes, and he said in a choked voice, my spiritual master was no ordinary spiritual master. Then he paused for some time, and wiping his tears from his cheeks, he said in an even choked voice, he saved me. At that point, I began to understand the meaning of spiritual master and dropped all consideration of ever replacing Swamiji. After 2 days, Swamiji said he would not call any of his god brothers to come to take care of his disciples. He said, if this person speaks just one word different from what I am speaking, there will be great confusion among you. Actually, he said the idea was an insult to the spiritual master. Swamiji told Kirtinananda he had definitely decided to go to India via New York as soon as possible. Kirtanananda packed Swamiji's things and drove him down to San Francisco to spend the night at the temple. They would leave the next morning. The temple and even Swamiji's apartment were very hectic that night, with many devotees and guests wanting to see Swamiji and dozens of people wanting initiation. When Kirtanananda advised Swamiji not to exert himself by going down for the evening program, he insisted on at least going and sitting during the kirtana. When he entered the storefront, the devotees immediately stopped their kirtana, dropping down to offer obeisances. There was a hush. He commanded a new reverence. This might be the last time they would see him. They watched him during the kirtana as he played his kartals, singing with them for the last time. The uninitiated wanted to accept him as their spiritual master tonight before it was too late. Swamiji asked for the microphone. No one had expected him to speak. Kirtanananda, the only person in a position to restrain him, said nothing and sat before him like the others, submissive and expectant. Swamiji spoke quietly about his vision. Under the order of his spiritual master, he was bringing Lord Chaitanya's movement to America. And Krishna had kindly sent him so many sincere souls. I have a few children in India from my family days, he said, but you are my real children. Now I am going to India for a little while. I am an old man, he said. I may die at any moment. But please, you carry on this Sankirtan moment. You have to become humble and tolerant. Lord Chaitanya says, be as humble as a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. You must have enthusiasm and patience to push on this Krishna conscious philosophy. He sat still and continued speaking to them gravely, asking them to stick together and push on the moment for their own benefit and for others. Whatever they had learned, he said they should repeat. They realized, perhaps for the first time, that they were part of a preaching mission, a movement. They were together not just for good times and good vibrations, they had a loving obligation to Swamiji and Krishna. In New York, the devotees did not have much time for sadness. Kirtanananda telegraphed Shri Krishna Pandit that Bhakti Vedanta Swami's arrival in Delhi would be on July 24th at 7:30 a.m. and that Shri Krishna Pandit should prepare the Swamiji's quarters at the Chippivada temple. The telegram mentioned Swamiji's intention to consult a physician in Delhi and then go to Vrindavan. He was anxious to return to Vrindavan. Devotees had been asking Satsvarupa to transfer his civil service job to Boston and to open a Krishna consciousness center there. They had also asked Rupanuga to do the same in Bhopal. When Satsvarupa and Rupanuga approached Swamiji to find out what he wanted, he became very pleased. Subala was going to open a center in Santa Fe, he said, and Dayananda was going to Los Angeles. Hare Krishna mantra is like a big cannon, he told them. Go and sound this cannon so everyone can hear it and it will drive away Maya. The devotees wanted to ask, but what if you don't return? They were fearful. What if Krishna kept Swamiji in Vrindavan? What if Swamiji never returned? How could they survive against Maya? But Swamiji had already assured them that whatever Krishna consciousness he had given them would be enough even if he never returned. Just 30 minutes before he had to leave for the airport, Swamiji sat in his room chanting on the beads of a girl who had asked to be initiated. Then, as he had done many times before, he left his apartment, went downstairs, crossed the courtyard, and entered the storefront. Sitting on the old carpet, he spoke quietly and personally. I'm going, but my Guru Maharaj and Bhakti Vinod are here. He looked towards the painting of his spiritual master and Bhakti Vinod Thakur. I have asked them to kindly take care of all of you, my spiritual children. The grandfather always takes care of the children much better than the father. So do not fear. There is no question of separation. The sound vibration fixes up us together, even though the material body may not be there. What do we care for this material body? Just go on chanting Hare Krishna and we will be packed up together. You will be chanting here and I will be chanting there, and this vibration will circulate around this planet. Several devotees rode with Swamiji in the taxi, Brahmananda in the front with the driver, Raya Rama and Kirtanananda in the back beside their spiritual master. When Kirtanananda sees Vrindavana, Swamiji said, he will not be able to understand how I could have left that place and come to this place. It is so nice. There are no motor cars there like here, rushing whoosh, whoosh and smelling. Only there is Hare Krishna. Everybody always chanting. Thousands and thousands of temple. I will show you Kirtanananda. We will walk all about there and I will show you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But now you find that whoosh whoosh in Vrindavan also. Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Guruji. Brahmananda began to cry and Swamiji patted him on the back. I can understand that you are feeling separation, he said. I am feeling for my Guru Maharaj. I think this is what Krishna desires. You may be coming there to me and be training up, and we will spread this movement all over the world. Raya Rama, you will go to England. Brahmananda, you want to go to Japan or Russia? That's all right. The devotees converged on the Air India waiting room near a crowded cocktail lounge. Wearing a sweater, his chadar folded neatly over one shoulder, Swamiji sat in a chair, while his disciples sat as closely as possible around his feet. He held an umbrella just as when he had first come alone to New York, almost 2 years ago. Although exhausted, he was smiling. Swamiji noted a mural of Indian women carrying large jars on their heads. and he called the name of a young girl who had recently gone with her husband, Hamsaduta, to join the iskcon center in Montreal. Himavati, would you like to go to India and learn to carry this water pot like the Indian women? Yes, yes, she said, I'll go. Yes, Swamiji said, someday we will all go. Kirtananand was carrying a portable battery-operated phonograph and 2 copies of the Hare Krishna mantra record. Kirtananand Swamiji asked, why not play the record? They will enjoy. Kirtananand played the record very softly, its sound catching the attention of people in the cocktail lounge. Make it a little louder, Swamiji asked, and Kirtananand increased the volume, while Swamiji nodded his head, keeping time. Soon the devotees began humming along with the record and then quietly singing, until gradually they were singing loudly. Some of Prabhuji, can you please scroll? Some of the devotees began to cry. When the time came to board the plane, Swamiji embraced each of his men. They stood in a line, and one after another approached him and embraced him. He patted a few of the women on the head. Accompanied by Kirtananand, whose head was shaven and who wore an incongruous black woolen suit, Swamiji walked slowly towards the gate. As he disappeared from view, the devotees ran for the observation deck to get a last look at his departing plane. A gentle rain was washing the airfield as the devotees raced across the wet observation deck. There below were Swamiji and Kirtananand walking towards their plane. Abandoning decorum, the devotees began to shout. Swamiji turned and waved. He climbed the movable stairway, turning again at the top and raising his arms, and then entered the plane. The devotees chanted wildly while the boarding steps moved away. The door closed and the plane began to turn. The devotees had pressed close to the rail, but they pulled back as the jet exhaust blasted them with the heat. With a great roar, the Air India jet, lights blinking, taxied out to the runway. The devotees continued to chant Hare Krishna until the plane left the ground, became a speck in the sky, and then disappeared. Prabhuji, can
Thank
you
you.
please-
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Madhumati.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. New Delhi, July 25th, 1967. The wall of heat that greeted them felt good to Swamiji. He had come for this. Inside the airport terminal, overhead fans stirred the muggy air as Swamiji and Kirtananda stood in slow-moving lines while uniformed clerks checked passports and custom forms without Western-style computers or efficiency. Just beyond the areas for immigration and customs, people waiting for arriving passengers were waving, calling, and coming together with friends and family members. After Swamiji and Kirtananda claimed their luggage and cleared customs, they stood on the sidewalk outside the terminal. Although Swamiji had removed his sweater, Kirtananda stood sweltering in. Just roll up. In his black wool suit. It was 2 a.m. All around, passengers were meeting loved ones who embraced them, sometimes even garlanded them and helped them into cars and taxis. But no one was there for Swamiji. It was certainly different from the recent tearful airport scenes where Swamiji had been with his loved ones. Now, instead of being surrounded by loving disciples, he was besieged by taxi drivers and porters wanting to carry his luggage for a fee. In Hindi, Swamiji asked one of the drivers to take them to Chippiwada in Old Delhi. The drivers put their luggage in the trunk, and Swamiji and his disciple climbed into the back seat. The small ambassador taxi drove through streets well known to Swamiji. Nighttime traffic was light, an occasional taxi of motor rickshaw. Mostly the streets were empty and quiet, the shops closed, an occasional person or cow sleeping outdoors. Just a few years before, Bhaktivedanta Swami had sold Back to Godhead magazine, solicited donations, and printed his Srimad Bhagavatam here. In those days, he had been alone, practically without money or residence, yet he had been happy, completely dependent on Krishna. But India's leaders were rejecting Vedic culture and imitating the West. Although some Indians still professed to follow Vedic culture, mostly they were victims of hodgepodge teachers who didn't accept Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead. So Bhaktivedanta Swami had felt obliged to leave to go and transplant the Vedic culture in the West. He had held strictly to the vision of his preceders, spiritual masters, and he had been proven right. The West was very good field for Krishna consciousness. As the taxi drove through Old Delhi and approached Chowri Bazaar, Bhaktivedanta Swami saw the printing and paper shops, now closed for the night, and the usual dense traffic of human halted carts was now absent, though some laborers were sleeping on their carts till the morning, when they would bathe in an outdoor well and begin another day's hauling. When Bhaktivedanta Swami had been overseeing the publishing of his first volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, he had daily walked these streets, buying papers, picked up proof from the printer, returning with the corrected proof. His first canto had been a triumph. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yes, Leela Nandini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji Dandat Pranam. Chowri Bazaar led to side streets that led to the narrow lanes of Chippivada, where upright metal posts blocked autos and rickshaws were entering. The driver stopped the taxi on an empty road and turned for his payment. Swamiji took from his billfold 40 rupees, the same 40 rupees he had carried with him on the boat to America in 1965. But the driver took the entire 40 rupees and said he would keep it all as just fare. Swamiji protested the fare should not be even half that. Loudly they argued back and forth in Hindi. The driver had pocketed the money and would give no change. Swamiji knew that to get a policeman at this hour would be very difficult. Finally, although this had been nothing less than a robbery, Swamiji let the man go. Swamiji and Kirtananda took their luggage and walked the last block up to the door of Chippivada Radha Krishna temple.
Thank
It
you.
was
Just a second. So when you read about this incident, when that person tried to uh, charge heavily Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's reaction at that incident. So what comes to your mind?
It was easier in the West. He did not have to face this kind of robberies.
What else?
Prabhupada's level of tolerance.
What else?
Probably the fairness in dealings when he was in USA, people were very straightforward and honest in charging, and here they take them for granted. Probably that he had in mind what is the difference between USA and India.
Yeah, what else?
It reflected on his disciples. His disciples also were very sincere, like
Prabhuji,
Western
I would
disciples.
say,
Hmm.
Prabhuji, I would say the rickshaw driver was very fortunate to have a confrontation with Srila Prabhupada, and I'm hoping that eventually he will regret and will come back to Srila Prabhupada. I don't know.
Okay. What else?
I think maybe Prabhupada just saved, how to say, each cent of money, not in those activities, rather than Krishna consciousness spirit. So, yeah.
Srila Prabhupada protested, though he was a sannyasi. He protested. He was not like, oh, I'm a sannyasi, I should be renounced. Why should I fight? It's okay. This is anyway karma. Let it be. No, he protested. because he didn't see that as his money. He saw it as Krishna's money, and he had to protect Krishna's money, right? So Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada says, is not some whimsical, fanciful attitude towards life. It's a very practical approach. So a Krishna conscious devotee may act very much like a normal, ordinary person. But the goal is different, right? The goal is different. Whereas pseudo sannyasis or spiritualists, at such moments, they would try to pose themselves. It's okay, no problem, take the money. No, it's no fine, it's okay. I won't shout, I won't be angry. I'm a sadhu. Sadhu should never be angry. But Prabhupada protested, very much protested. So, very practical. But then the purpose is different. It is Krishna's money, right? It was Krishna's money. And at the same time, he understood the situation that it's night time, no policeman to call. So fine, let it be.
Prabhuji, here's a small thing out of it is a superficial thinking, but at that time there was no 40 rupees note. So Prabhupada must have only 20 rupees note of 2 each. When he thought that he should have charged half of that, then he should have given 20 rupees only to the driver, no, initially.
I don't know how it was. I mean,
Either some writer, he has, the person who has written the book, probably he has written in his own way.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know.
No, it's okay. Just like it's very small, insignificant.
But Prabhuji, just confirming, Srila Prabhupada would also get angry if anything was not done according to uh, the Vedic injunction or the way he had set out certain things, right?
Yeah. Yes, he would get angry. That's what he would get angry. He would get angry that he didn't let things just happen the way it was happening. So Krishna consciousness does teach you to fight for your right. That's what it teaches. So it's not for, as Prabhupada said in one of the classes, it's not for dumb people. It's not for, uh, lame people. It's not for so-called humble people. So he said, if required, devotees can become like Arjuna also. So that's the point. Next.
You can read,
Next
Prabhuji.
paragraph. Yeah, continue read it, please.
Yeah, thanks, Prabhuji. It was locked as they pounded loudly. Swamiji called out for Sri Krishna Pandit until a man came to the door, recognized Bhaktivedanta Swami, and let them in. The man showed them upstairs and unlocked the door to Swamiji's room. Swamiji turned on the light. The room was bare and dusty, and the bulb hanging from the ceiling created starlight and shadow. On the floor was the 3-foot ceiling created on the floor was the 3 foot high cement dome, indicating that directly below were the altar and the deities of Radha and Krishna. The dome prevented anyone from accidentally committing the offense of walking directly above the deities. The closet was stacked with printed Srimad Bhagavatam pages, Srimad Bhagavatam dust jackets, and form letters to prospective members of the League of Devotees. Everything was just as Bhaktivedanta Swami had left it. This is the room where I compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. Swamiji told Kirtananda, I slept here, and over here was my cooker and my typewriter. I would sleep and type and cook and type and sleep and type. Kirtananda was shocked to think of Swamiji living here in such a poor, humble place. It wasn't even clean. Although Kirtananda was uncomfortable in his suit and wondered when he would be able to get rid of it, he managed to get a thin mattress for Swamiji. Two Ayurvedic doctors came. They both agreed that the trouble was Swamiji's heart, but that the danger was now past. They gave him medicines and advised him to keep to a regulated schedule of eating, resting, and working. Sri Krishna Pandit regulated schedule of eating. Sri Krishna Pandit came by to sit and converse, and Swamiji told him of his success in America and all of the young devotees in New York and San Francisco. He played his record for Sri Krishna Pandit, and this drew a crowd of curious persons from other rooms in the temple. On August 1st, after 6 days in Delhi, Swamiji went to Vrindavana, where he occupied his old rooms at the Radha Damodara temple. After he had been there only one day and his health had only slightly improved, he began planning his return to America. I am always thinking of you, he wrote to the devotees whom he addressed as his dear students. In Delhi, Swamiji had received a letter from Brahmanda saying that the Macmillan Company was definitely interested in publishing his Bhagavad Gita. Now from Vrindavana, Swamiji wrote Brahmananda to sign a contract at once on his behalf. Swamiji had been considering whether to print privately in Japan or India or to wait for Macmillan. He was less concerned with the prestige and financial advantages of publishing through Macmillan. However, than he was with printing as quickly as possible. Although Swamiji was still very weak and was being massaged, Raj. Oh, it is. And cared by Kirtananda, who himself was listless and tired from the heat, he continued to range from one active and ambitious vision for his full Krishna conscious movement to another. He would think aloud about the volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam ready to be published if Macmillan would take them and the boys could act on his behalf. There was so much to do. He wanted to return by October and oversee things personally. Temperatures rose to more than 110 degrees, and Swamiji and Kirtananda had to stay inside with the doors shut and the overhead fan on. Although Kirtananda could barely perform his duties, Swamiji found the heat bracing and said it was restoring his health. Then, after the first week, the monsoon rains began and the heat broke. On Janmashtami Day, on Janmashtami Day, August 28, Swamiji awarded the order of sannyasa to Kirtananda in a ceremony at the Radha Damodara temple. Kirtananda thus became Swamiji's first disciple to become a sannyasi, Kirtananda Swami. In most cases, sannyasa is offered to men past 50 years of age, but Swamiji was willing to offer it to his young disciple because he was very much wanted men who were prepared to devote all their energies to traveling and preaching, the traditional duties of a sannyasi. Such sannyasis would be needed to strengthen and spread the Krishna conscious movement. During Kirtananda's initiation, hundreds of visitors were present, observing the birthday of Lord Sri Krishna, and many of them came by to congratulate the new sannyasi. Someone said he looked like Lord Chaitanya. Swamiji wrote,
Thank you,
Thank you, Prabhuji.
God of Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandat Pranam. He will go back to the States very soon to begin preaching work with great vigor and success. In the meantime, I shall try to utilize this white sannyasi for recruiting some members in India. Early in September, Achyutananda arrived in Vrindavan to be with Swamiji. For Achyutananda, the most wonderful thing about Swamiji in Vrindavan was the simplicity of his life. Although in New York, Swamiji had worn simple robes, he had always been regal, the guru, but here he lived very simply and humbly. Once, when he sat down on the veranda outside his room to wash his hands, his body instantly became covered with flies. Kirtanananda and Achyutananda were always being bothered by the flies. This was the rainy season, but Swamiji scarcely noticed them and sat quietly washing his hands. Kirtanananda and Achyutananda agreed that Swamiji wasn't just another Vrindavan Babaji. No one else was like him. Certainly, Gaurachand Goswami, proprietor of the Radha Damodar temple, wasn't like Swamiji. He wore thick glasses and could barely see, and when Kirtanananda and Achyutananda went before the deities in the temple, Gaurachand Goswami asked them loudly, "So how do you like them? Which one do you like the best?" "I like them all," said Achyutananda. I like the I like that big one on the end there," said the priest, pointing in an offhand manner at the deity of Krishna. "It looks a bit like General Chaudhary." The Swami's boys exchanged looks. What kind of guys are these? And went back to Swamiji for an explanation. "They are caste Goswamis," Swamiji explained. The original Goswamis, such as Jiva Goswami, who established the Radha Damodar temple, had engaged householders to worship the deities. And these caste Goswamis were descendants of those first householder pujaris. Swamiji explained that the caste Goswamis were the proprietors of the temple and they maintained the temples and ran the deity worship as a business to support their families. Several years ago, each of the deities now on the altar had his own temple, land, income, and priests. But for economy, the Goswamis had sold the property, reduced the opulence of the worship, and amalgamated the deities. There were many other interesting characters. The old widow, Sarajini, with bald head, and Shikha, and calloused bare feet, who slept in a room by the gate of the temple and swept Swamiji's kitchen, washed his clothes. Panchudas Goswami, the temple proprietor's son, who always chewed pan and went around the sleepy-eyed in a silk dhoti with a red embroidered border. The dark old Babaji who came at night, who was constantly laughing and who made sandalwood paste for Swamiji. The local herbal doctor Vanamali Kaviraj, who presided brightly smiling from behind a desk in a tiny chamber filled from ceiling to floor with little bottles, and a famous Pandit who visited Swamiji and wore a gold-linked tulsi necklace and diamond rings. All of these persons were devotees, residents of holy Vrindavan, but no one was like Swamiji.
Thank you. Lalita Prishta Gopi Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Dananam Pranam Prabhuji. Kirtananda Swami even became disappointed that no one else in Vrindavan was like Swamiji. In the land, well, everyone was an Indian and everyone was a devotee. Swamiji was still unique. No one else was so simple, so grave, so able to penetrate through falsity, so active to the heart, or so absolutely attached to Krishna. No one else could lead them with regular medication messages, rest and the heat of Vrindavan. Swamiji felt himself recovering. By mid-September, he declared himself 90% fit to return to the United States. He predicted that he would be back there by the end of October. Accompanied by Kirtananda and Achyutananda, he left Vrindavan and returned to the Chipavada temple in Delhi. On October 11, he wrote to Ramananda. Hare Krishna Guruji, can you help to scroll down? We must have our books printed. We have wasted much time in the matter of editing and finding out a suitable publisher. When I was alone, there were 3 volumes published, but during the last 2 years, I could not publish a single volume more. It's great defeat. If I have 1 or 2 sincere souls like you, and if we can make more publications, then our mission will be a great success. I'm prepared to sit down underneath a tree with 1 sincere soul, and in such activity, I shall be freed of all diseases. Knowing that Swamiji will soon be returning, the devotees in America began to increase their entreaties. Each group asked him to come to their particular city. On November 4, Swamiji wrote Mukunda, as you say that my absence is being felt now, surely more deeply than ever. So I also felt to start immediately without waiting. And to Mukunda's wife, Janaki, he wrote, every minute I think of you. And as you ask me to go to San Francisco while returning from India, I'm thinking of going directly to San Francisco. At the bottom of the same letter to Mukunda and Janaki, Achudananda added a health report. Swamiji is looking healthy and living and working regularly, but his pulse rate is generally too fast. Last night it was 95, unusually fast even for him, as the general hold was between 83 and 86. Swamiji decided not to wait any longer, even though by waiting, he might be able to secure permanent US residence. I want to return to a country. Well, there is a good air and good water, he told Chunanda one day. Every day we are receiving letters that devotees want me there. I thought that in my absence they might deteriorate, and I was reluctant to even come to India. But now I see that it's growing. There is need for me to go and supervise the expansion. So I want to go back, just to make certain that Swamiji would come first to San Francisco. Mukunda sent a telegram. Swamiji, Ramananda, and I agree you start immediately. Advise exact arrival date, Mukunda. Swamiji had planned his routine through Tokyo, intending to stop for a day to probe if there is any possibility of starting a center in Tokyo. He will let Mukunda know by telephone his arrival time in San Francisco, but 3 weeks passed while Swamiji waited for his P form, a clearance from the Bank of India required for an Indian citizen traveling abroad. Meanwhile, he received good news from New York. The Macmillan company's interest in Bhagavad Gita was real. The contract was being drawn. Pleased with Brahmananda, he wrote it to him on November 11, explaining his visions for distributing Krishna consciousness literature. If publishings are there, we can work from one cent only, like New York or San Francisco. For propagating our cult all over the world, let us stick to the publication of BTG more and more nicely and publish some Vedic literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, essential.
Thank you, Ashima Mataji.
As Swamiji's thoughts turned more to the preaching that awaited him in America, he assessed what he had done so far, what he could do, and the process by which he would do it. When the day for his departure finally arrived, he gave last instructions to Achyutananda, who would be remaining to preach Krishna conscious in India. Just pray to Lord Krishna that I can go to America, he requested Achyutananda. How can I? You will be leaving me. No, we'll always remain packed up together if you remember my teachings. If you preach, you will become strong, and all these teachings will be in the proper perspective. When we stop our preaching, then everything becomes stagnated, and we lose our life. Even here in India, people think that they know everything, but they are wrong. There is no end to hearing about Krishna. God is unlimited, so no one can say, I know everything about God. Those who say they know everything about God do not know. So everyone will appreciate you. Do not fear. The passengers and flight crew saw Swamiji as an elderly Indian man dressed in saffron robes. The stewardess weren't sure at first whether he spoke English, but when he asked them for fruits, they saw that he could and that he was a kind gentleman. He was quite putting on his glasses and reading from an old book of Indian scripture for hours at a time, or moving his lips in prayer while fingering Indian prayer beads in a cloth pouch, or sometimes resting beneath a blanket, his eyes shut. No one knew or bothered to inquire into what he was doing. They didn't know that anxious young hearts were awaiting him in San Francisco, or that the Macmillan Company in New York wanted to publish his English translation of Bhagavad Gita, or that he had spiritual centers in 2 countries with plans for expansion all over the world. He sat patiently chanting, often his hand in his bead bag, depending on Krishna as the hours passed. The plane landed in San Francisco, standing with hundreds of other passengers. Swamiji gradually made his way to the exit. Down the long attached tunnel, even before he reached the terminal building, he could see a few disciples smiling and waving on the other side of a glass partition. As he entered the terminal building, he moved toward the glass, and his disciples dropped to their knees, offering obeisances. As they raised their heads, he smiled and continued walking down the corridor. While they walked alongside, only the glass partition separating them. They had disappeared from his view as he walked down the stairway toward immigration and customs. The downstairs area was also glassed in, and Swamiji could see more than 50 devotees and friends waiting eagerly. As they again caught sight of him, they cried out as a group, Hare Krishna. Swamiji looked wonderful to them, tanned from his 5 months in India, younger and more sprightly. He smiled and triumphantly held up his hands in greeting. Devotees were crying in happiness. As Swamiji stood in line at the customs inspection point, he could hear the devotees' kirtana, the glass walls only partially masking the sound. The customs officials ignored the chanting. Although the connection between the saffron robed passenger and the joyful chanters was not hard to see. Swamiji waited in line, glancing now and then at his chanting disciples. He had only one suitcase to place on the table before the inspector. Methodically, the inspector went through the contents: cotton saris for the girls, silk garlands for the Jagannath deities, kartala, saffron dhotis and kurtas, a coconut grater, and little bottles of Ayurvedic medicine. What are these? The inspector probed. The little bottles looked strange, and he called for another inspector. A delay. Swamiji's disciples became perturbed by the petty-minded customs inspectors, poking through Swamiji's things, now opening the tightly corked bottles, sniffing and checking the contents. The inspector seemed satisfied. Swamiji tried to close his suitcase, but he couldn't work the zipper. Another delay. The devotee, still anxiously chanting, watched as he managed to zip his suitcase closed with the help of the gentleman behind him. He walked towards the glass doors. The devotees began chanting madly. As he stepped through the door, a devotee blew a conch shell that resounded loudly throughout the hall. Devotees garlanded him, and everyone pressed in, handing him flowers. He entered their midst as a beloved father enters and reciprocates the embrace of his loving children.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll stop here. Chapter is over. Any questions or comments?
Prabhuji, Kirtananand Swami did not come back with him.
He would come later. Srila Prabhupada left him in India to go through some training.
He would have been the first white person left by Prabhupada to preach to the Indians here, Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. It was not really for preaching. Of course, he might have done some preaching, but then it was mainly for him to
To
live
take
in
care of the
India.
activities.
No, live in India. There was no iskcon in India in those days. So to just be in India and learn what it means to be a sannyasi by looking at the culture and all that.
So he was in Vrindavan, Prabhuji?
No, he was not only in Vrindavan. He would travel with Achyutanand Prabhu to some different places. Like that. He did not just stay in England. Prabhupada wanted them to learn. So he gave them some freedom that you travel, you experience, you explore, like that.
So Prabhuji, Mayapur happened later.
Lot later. Now when we read this book, we'll come to know that the focus is still on the West. Prabhupada has not yet shifted his focus to India. The focus is still on the West. So go to San Francisco, it's 67 now, 67 or 68. So you go to San Francisco, then from there devotees will move to Toronto, Canada, and then, Montreal. And then Prabhupada would send his disciples to London. So after London, then Australia. After doing all that, Europe, America, Australia, South America, then he would decide to come back to India with a group of disciples, which is 1971. So when he returns to India in 1971, now iskcon is actually an international society. Then he gets a grand welcome and then he starts developing India. He didn't want to come to India actually. He wanted to just stay in United States, as we'll come to know later, because he appreciated the interest that devotees in Western countries showed, and that was not shown by the Indians. But then Srila Prabhupada told that I went to the West because it was my Guru Maharaj's order that I should preach Krishna consciousness in the Western language. So after I have completed my Guru's order, now it's my mission to preach in India. So then he came to India. And as we know, now iskcon India is the biggest